94% of Gen Z, shop with values in mind, right? Authenticity, transparency, humility are all key aspects of it, but so is sustainability. The reason why it doesn't always win their wallet share is right because economics still matter. But if there's a great desire for it, if a brand or retailer can get it right, there's a big opportunity there because they're helping consumers live those aspirational values. And there's something really powerful in that. And so it's really digging into deeper, okay, well, how can we get there in a more effective way?
This isn't your first time conducting research around Gen Z. What's spurring this particular checkpoint and this time to refresh?
We've been studying year over year. 2 years felt like a good mark. Sometimes when you do it on a yearly basis, you don't get enough new data.
Sure.
But you also see in every demographic, there's a cusp that they start to go over, right? So next we're going to study is alpha because they're starting to become teenagers, right? So they get to this next life stage and you can be bucketed in generations, but then it's where in your lifespan are you as a generation is also going to influence change as well. So, you have a lot of that coming to age with Gen Z. You have a lot of them, they've been in the workforce, they're evolving to other stages of that. And so we wanted to have this conversation. And furthermore, the first study was much closer to coming out of COVID. This is years after coming out of COVID, right? And so all of that reshaped behaviors that then get reshaped again. And we also recognize that this is the generation that's often just been clustered in group. Gen Z is this. And it is a very complex generation with a lot of different behaviors and variables. And so we wanted to be able to dig in deeper into all those nuances.
I'm glad that you brought up those intricacies because I know, I'm a millennial. I started in this industry when everyone was talking about millennials and trying to bucket them or define them in a very batch and blast way, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And what was really interesting to me about this particular research is you really let those nuances and complexities really shine through, maybe not just at the demographic level, but at the individual level. And one area that really shines through for me is the tug of war of sorts between value and values. And I think that's something that we're all kind of feeling that tension a little bit. So we know from the data that Gen Z does consider sustainability and the ethics of an organization, but price is important. Value is still important at a financial level. So is this something you think will become more prevalent? Can you unpack some of the data here that kind of shows and illustrates that tension?
Yeah, so the way we framed it a bit is aspirational values, because in the past there's so much conversation. They talk about sustainability and then that gets discounted because, they care about it, but they don't put their wallets behind it. So, there's nothing to do there. But that's actually not the opportunity. So when we think about aspirational value, per our report, we had just over 1,000 respondents. 94% of them, shop with values in mind, right? Authenticity, transparency, humility are all key aspects of it, but so is sustainability. The reason why it doesn't always win their wallet share is right because economics still matter. But if there's a great desire for it, and later in the survey, in the report, we talk about how we surveyed who do you think's the most responsible for helping you achieve that? Themselves and retailers and brands came in number 1 and 2. If a brand or retailer can get it right in enabling it, there's a big opportunity there because they're helping consumers live those aspirational values. And there's something really powerful in that. And so it's really digging into deeper, okay, well, how can we get there in a more effective way?
I think humility is an interesting one to call out because it's not one that I think retailers or especially direct-to-consumer brands and founder-led brands often think of as a core tenet, core value. But I think founder-led brands in particular, especially ones that are starting to look toward retail as an emergent channel for them or opportunity channel, tend to do that by nature on social media. Mm-hmm. I find that to be an interesting driver. I just thought I'd call that out because it tends to be a social media strategy, especially if it's a founder-led brand. I'm interested to know how those things align at scale as you start to get larger and larger, and when it's no longer founder-led, how something like humility comes through in a much larger scale brand.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's definitely a lot more, I think, articles out now about the importance of founder-led and why it has that resonance, right, with the consumer. And I think it's, at scale, it's being really prudent and responsible to like any brand work, making sure that you're extracting what are our value propositions? What do we stand for? How do we speak about that? What is our voice? What is our tone? You have to maintain that even when the founder is gone. And that's a hard thing. So oftentimes you see the founder still sits on the board or has some sort of involvement. I think when they totally leave, you do start to feel that difference and shift. You can't discount that because that is what's allowing your brand to stand apart from the rest, is that people are buying into that founder promise just as much as they're buying into other aspects of the brand or the products themselves. So I think the important thing is that they stay involved in some aspect. They tend to be known also when you have that founder approach. There's a level of transparency that's in the approach too, right? They're showing behind the scenes and the making of, how we got here, why I believe in these things. And that's the human side of it. And when we're living in this constantly digitally connected where there's fleeting trends or there's like microseconds of interaction on a TikTok or whatever, right? The things that are going to have more of those lasting, stickier impressions are going to be the more human aspects of it. And I think what we're talking about is that layer.
I think it's a really great transition to this idea of Gen Z wanting to be co-creators, because even though there's a really strong founder story and that brings them into the brand and makes the mission, values, and like story really clear for the consumers. Like once there's this connection, there's this level of investment that isn't just dollars based, right? It's very emotional. It's participatory. It's like, I feel connected to this brand, so I want to be part of it. And what ways can brands enable that? So my question for you is like, how is this showing up in the physical realm? Because obviously in the digital world, we have social media, we have ways that they can participate in content and co-create. So how is this translating into the physical realm?
I think there's a lot of different ways you see brands doing that. And validation, this was one of the areas that we investigated in there. How do you want to engage with brands? And co-creation, 3 out of 4. That was one of their responses, that they want to be co-creators and collaborators in the brand journey, store design, product customization. I think we more often see product customization, right? You see that with Levi's, you see that with Coach, you see that with a lot of brands. We're working on a project now that we can't announce yet. That's going to be a new flagship destination for a client. And we were like, okay, how do we have the customization station worked into this? And so whether it's a pop-up or a permanent store, you see that, when years ago when we did one for toothpaste, people wanted to bling out their name on their Better Than Sex mascara, so people want that aspect. It makes it feel a little bit of their own, and they had a hand in it. But you don't see it often in store design. I think, you see collaborations with an influencer. But I think there's a real opportunity because you're getting validation, buy-in, and I think you unlock more brand evangelists that way as well, when they're getting the opportunity to come to the table and have a part of it and be able to tell people that they've done that. And I also think that, brands and retailers make a lot of assumptions. Bubble, right? Beauty brand. One of the things that Chai has done really well over the years is having focus groups of thousands of individuals that vote on the coloration, the packaging, the messaging, what stores should she be sold in. And so, it won't always be 100% what makes it successful, but I think it furthers that. And I also think that you cultivate this group of people who really stand behind the brand in a different way because they had a different level of interaction with you.
We have talked for many years about the a brewing force of co-creation that already exists with, consumer-based tools around AI that has, been sort of bubbling beneath the surface. Consumers want to either create of their own accord or to interact with media that is not necessarily authorized material created by the brand, but is genre specific to a brand. For instance, you saw a couple years ago the Balenciaga Harry Potter send-ups, and there's something really appealing or entertaining about that type of media that we find appealing, and so we created a piece of print, a book called The Multiplayer Brand, where we theorized at Future Commerce that, more brands would sort of be pushed in a direction of co-creation, whether they like it or not. And so whether it's physical co-creation or digital co-creation, Nike has this new Air Imagination tool where, AI enables you to, imagine something. It's what people want. It's makes them feel like they have some sort of say in what the brand creates.
It's not a new thing that people want the level of co-creation that they want today, but I think the newer part of it is how we were able to dig into how they want that co-creation and it not just being from a product level, which I think is always the assumption and the missed opportunity, or maybe the newer opportunities. They also, on the journey, on the store layout, on the store design, on the store programming. So there's other ways that consumers can be partners in co-creation with brands and retailers.